Good afternoon. My name is Chris Allen with Youth Play for Employers. I'm delighted to be joined by Jez from the Thomas Paine. Hello, it's Thomas Paine Hotel. Hello there, I should say.
Hello, Chris. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So my starting question really has to be: can you tell me a bit about the Thomas Paine Hotel, please?
Okay, so the Thomas Paine Hotel, I bought this in 2013. It was half boarded up, and I looked at it as a future venture because I like to resurrect buildings, and it was a Grade 2 listed building, which was going to ruin, to be honest. And it's probably the best thing I ever done because it's the birthplace of Thomas Paine himself, one of the founding fathers of United States of America. American Revolution, French Revolution was Thomas Paine, where I was taught school by my history classes about Shakespeare. The Americans are taught all about Thomas Paine, and this happens to his birthplace. So, it was a no-brainer to me to look at it. And we just happen to have 23,000 Americans who live 9 miles down the road at Lakenheath and Mildenhall, who are infatuated by Thomas Paine because they are still taught about him. And their school at the base, which has over 1,000 children, part of their history classes is about Thomas Paine himself. So to own the birthplace of a very founding father of America is a pleasure. So I sort of resurrected the hotel, and I've now extended it as well. We also have a Thomas Paine Society. We have various different things all over the Thomas Paine Hotel about Thomas Paine, and we now have a dedicated museum within the hotel about Thomas Paine himself. And we are the only hotel in Britain to have a museum within its building, and the only museum in the world dedicated to Thomas Paine himself. So now we accommodate functions for up to 110, 120 sit down, 200 in the evenings. We've got 3 function rooms, all licensed for weddings. We had 8 rooms, we now have 11, and all of them are named after American dignitaries regarding their relationship with Thomas Paine. So Thomas Paine's buddies in those days were Benjamin Franklin, Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, etc. And and this happens to be his birthplace. So where it's been declined over the years, I think we've resurrected it, and we're doing very, very well with it.
And that's fantastic to hear, and really interesting to hear around the history, surrounding, the property and the business as well. And with all of those different parts of the business, as you said there, the historical side, the function side, the everyday running of hotel side, what kind of roles and people do you have within, all of these branches of the Thomas Paine Hotel to facilitate all of those things on a day-to-day basis?
So when I speak to employers and I speak to colleges, schools, which I'm very, very much involved with around the area, I say to them, it's an incredible place because we've got 5 businesses in one here. So we've got housekeeping, we've got bedrooms, you've got waiters, waitresses within our function rooms, restaurant, we've got chefs, pastry chefs within our kitchen, we've got function staff. There's a whole load of different things all available under one roof. And I've had people who come to work for me before who have had experience within us, with our industry in here. And when they've left, they've had a great CV behind them at being multi-skilled. And multi-skilled nowadays is quite important, especially in hotels. If any hotel managers and owners see that the person can jump into any department wherever they're needed, it's a huge plus. So not only do we have chefs, we also have wine waiters, and I'm putting my staff through sommelier courses, which is a declining trade. I'm a qualified sommelier myself, And whatever experience I have, I really want to pass it on to the others so that they can be as successful as I am. And the only reason why I say that is because I left school with no qualifications whatsoever. And I'm not encouraging that. But what I am encouraging is you might not have any qualifications. You might not have, you don't think, but work ethics really, really count. And the harder you work, the more you'll get somewhere. There's no such thing as a free lunch. But what you can do is come and work for us, and I'll teach you as much as I can. And I've got over 40 years experience in this trade.
You've touched on it there about some of the potentially, useful skills that would serve someone well coming into this trade. And, so if you've had someone coming to apply for a role with yourself and they were, say, sort of 17, 18, as I say, maybe just coming out of school, and let's say this wasn't, a trade and area they were interested in, what kind of personality traits or soft skills would you sort of advise that would serve them really well in this industry?
So coming into this industry, you have to be a people person. You have to like people. It's not like working in a factory where you can sit down and think of whatever you want. Here you have to think about the customer. So customer, eye contact, the way you are, the way you're presented, personal hygiene, all these kind of things run really, really well with our industry. And our industry is all about people. So from the first impressions when people walk through the door, a smile, welcome, sir. We don't address people in here as hello, mate, how are you, John? We are say good afternoon, good evening, sir, madam. And all those skills are common sense. But if you don't know about it, then fine, come along with us. We can teach you all them skills. I teach those skills. I do inspirational talks for 2 local schools. West Suffolk College I go to. I'm just doing something with Norfolk County Council now, as you guys know. And we encourage people to come into our industry because you can learn so much more. I mean, whether it be, serving, whether it be preparing, whether it be cleaning, whether it be admin, there is everything. So there's something for everybody in this trade. So don't be frightened, be happy. I mean, I'm looking for a couple of apprentices here, and I think those apprentices will be really lucky to get a position with us so that we can provide them with the actual, sociability about dealing with life, dealing with the society when you're coming into that age from 16 onwards, when it can be quite frightening. Not with here. I mean, I've just taken on 5 staff yesterday from a local school, all between the ages of 16 and 17, and they're all starting this Friday.
It's brilliant to hear about all the impact you're having in the local community and the willingness, as you say, for your staff to learn those lessons. And I can relate a lot to it. I have quite a big hospitality background myself, and transferring into other roles like this and other sectors I've worked in, I've always been able to see how the grounding and the good skills I got and the core skills I've got from those roles still serves me now. Even just having this conversation with you now, I can think back to myself, well, it's because I've had so many conversations with customers over the years, that I find that so much easier. I'm curious, do you find that we just talked about obviously some of the skills that you would look for in someone coming in to a role with your organization, with all the histories you said there, and all maybe the added emphasis on things, like maybe customers asking about Thomas Paine, asking about questions about his life, do you think that puts a little bit more emphasis on your staff having some of those core skills such as communication, because say they've got the whole history of the building, which adds another element to the kind of interactions they might have with customers?
I think a broad horizon for any child coming through is a must. You must try and, I mean, one of the reasons why the local schools are so interested in this place is because one of the the best loved people of Thetford was Thomas Paine. 1743 this building goes back to. Americans come in and start taking photographs of our walls and the floor because they've never seen anything so old. But to actually know a little bit about Thomas Paine, and there's a statue in the middle of town, what I found is that the Americans, and you go to America, you go to New York, Pennsylvania, they know about Thomas Paine. But locally here, there's not a lot of people knew about him at all. They all thought it was just about the hotel and about a statue in town. About him himself, no. So what we've done, we've actually having the museum here is just unreal, because I get different schools and colleges come now to have trips to come and see our a fantastic museum. Only last week we had a delegation of 30 Japanese, from Nagawa, come over to see our museum. I mean, how brilliant is that? To have a Japanese delegation. I've got some Australians booked in, but loads of Americans again. They're all so. If we can provide our local society, our local schools with that knowledge, hey, presto, we're all onto a winner.
I'm curious as well to go back to the origins, because you talked about how, as I say, you purchased a hotel and, as you say, it was sort of boarded up and a lot of work needed to be done. And if we sort of, if there's any young person maybe watching this video and maybe one day their dream is specifically involving, whether it be sort of, renovating places or sort of large projects like that, that requires a completely different skill set, obviously, unto itself. And I was curious sort of, from your experiences of having, having a project you're passionate about, as you said, you said it's the best thing you've done in terms of buying it and getting it done. What were some of the challenges you faced along the way, in the Thomas Paine Hotel becoming what it is today, and how did you overcome them?
I think the biggest challenges were the building. The building was, it needed a lot of work doing to it. The risk factor, that's a big thing. A lot of people do not take risks. It was a huge risk. It would have been make or break, for what I did here, and I've invested a lot of money as well. And we've come across this, unbelievable thing of COVID in the last 3 years, which none of my family or my ancestors or anyone has ever been through. So that was the biggest challenge, I think, coming out in the hospital. It hit the hospitality industry. But do you know what? Life is being adaptable. We adapted to COVID, and I couldn't open my public areas for 2 years, but what I did is I let all my rooms to the homeless, and we took in the homeless. And I work with prisons as well. I work with ex-offenders, vulnerable people, and homeless. So to see them to do right by them, the council asked me to house them, and I did, and they paid us for it. And that was our grace. That was our grace throughout COVID. Coming out after that, that was another challenge. I'll give you some figures here. I've just where I'm sitting here now is a brand new extension here, so you can see a mural of Thomas Paine there. You see Maharaja Dilip Singh there. So this here was that was budgeted at 200,000. We've now just finished it at 500,000. So can you imagine that? We had to find another £300,000 to find it. How do you find it? We did it. We did it. We worked hard over it, and we got across that life is about, if you hit something, tackle it. Just tackle it. Adapt yourself to whatever challenges you've got. And if you can cover your challenges, you can do anything. I left school with 0. I had no qualifications. In my day, it was called a YTS, which was a youth training scheme. And I used to do 60 hours a week for £25. And nowadays I speak to some children, they go, oh, no, we won't. But you sure you did that? I said, of course I'm sure I did that. But one thing I gained was the experience of life. And also I got all my trade qualifications. I'm a qualified sommelier to level 3 diploma. If I went to do that nowadays on my own, it cost me £3,500. But my company at that time sponsored me to do that. So I might have only been getting £25 a week, but what I did do is get all my accommodation paid for, my qualifications paid for, and I ended up staying with that company for over 22 years. And when I left them, my last job was a 5-star hotel in London. I was GM there for 5 years. So, all those challenges have come together for me then to go and work for myself, and that is what I've done at this place. And now this place, we are #1. We've got 5 awards last year, we've got 4 awards this year. We're just going to go and pick up another week. We've resurrected the building, got a filming company coming over from Los Angeles next month to film in my hotel, which is now being used by filming companies. So but it was a huge risk. It was a huge risk where half the hotel was shut down to where we are now. But that's taken me 10 years.
This talk has been filled with lots of brilliant pieces of advice and stories and insights, and it makes it difficult because I asked this last question I'm going to ask you to all the employers I've done these employer talks with, and the challenging part will probably be just for you to pick one. But if you could go back now, taking into account the experiences you've described and, you know, as you say, successes you've had and maybe mistakes you've made and learned from, what is the one piece of advice you would go back and give to your younger self? Career advice, I should say.
Career advice, I would, and I mean career advice as in going through to being in business as well. One of the things I've taught myself, and I taught myself this in COVID. You know, I've had ups and downs with different people who didn't know about my trade, and I went into business with people. I should have looked further before I went into business with people who knew nothing about my trade, and I did know everything. And they tried to tell me what to do, and it didn't work. So in the end, I had to take those challenges. I had to lose my money to realize, hold on a second, do what you're good at. Don't try and go into somebody else's field. I'm a hotelier through and through. Talk to me about food and wine. Absolutely. Talk to me about IT, being a teacher, being a window cleaner, a technician, forget it. I'm good at hotels. So don't venture into any other area that you're not good at, because it doesn't work. Do what your body says, do what your mind says, and keep to that, and you'll excel in what you want to do. I'm a people person. Put me into admin, forget it, it's not going to happen. But when I talk to people and I'm with people and I'm telling people how to do things, that is the best thing I've learned, you know, is keep your mind of what you can do best. Don't venture into it. Keep at one thing and you'll do really, really well.